Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com, and we may feature your email on our Listener Experience Zone, the Les, which is a segment of our podcast, and the basement that we're in. Double meaning. We have a very special episode this week, but before we get into it, Danielle, give us a little update.
We have Run Club this Thursday and every Thursday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time here in Denver at the 99ers Sports Bar. If you listen to our podcast each week, we share a secret word, and if you share that word with the bartenders, you can get 50% off your first draft. The secret word this week is Banshee.
Ooh, I love Banshee, because this week we have an interview with Emma Santosuaso, who plays for the Boston Banshees, one of the 6 teams in the Women's Elite Rugby League. Women's Elite Rugby is in its second year, and we got to speak to Emma right before her first game of the season, where Boston secured the win against the New York Exiles. We loved getting to speak to Emma. She listens to this show before we even reached out to her, which is just so cool. And we love speaking with her, and we know that you will too. So let's get into this interview.
Yes.
Emma Santosuaso is a semi-professional rugby player for the Boston Banshees, one of 6 teams in the Women's Elite Rugby League. A lifelong multi-sport athlete, Emma discovered rugby at 18 during her freshman year at Bentley University. Following college, Emma advanced to Division I club rugby with Boston Women's RFC and later competed with Beantown RFC in the Women's Premier League. With the launch of Women's Elite Rugby in 2025, Emma joined the Boston Banshees and currently serves on the league's player committee, collaborating with leadership as the league continues to grow in its second season. Off the field, she is based in Boston, where she works as a tax accountant at a tech company. Welcome, Emma. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Excited to meet you guys.
Likewise. And did you just celebrate a birthday? I feel like we might have the same birthday. When's your birthday?
April 29th.
Oh, same birthday. Birthday twins.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, Taurus
belated.
energy.
Thank you. Yes. Big 30. So that's
Nice.
I was the big 35, so
okay.
big numbers. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Nice.
Did you have a good birthday?
I did. It was nice. Obviously, we're in season now, so it's busy, but I got to do full contact on my birthday. So that's
Ooh.
Nice.
Okay, what does that mean?
So when we have training, there's only one night a week that we really do full contact. And of course, it fell on the day that my birthday was. But basically,
Great.
you do tackling, all of the full live scrimmaging, where usually we'll just do touch or skills and things like that.
That's awesome. Well, happy birthday. We're happy you're here. Let's start with learning a little bit more about you. You grow up playing a lot of sports in Boston. What was your path to find rugby?
Growing up, I played soccer, basketball, softball, and I will say softball was definitely my sport. That was the sport I did, like AAU, travel, all those things during the summer. But when I got to college, I was like, I'm not going to pursue a college career in any of these sports, because it's like I love playing sports, but none of them really were like I was super passionate about. But then I got to college, and you just miss the camaraderie, miss playing sports with other people. So I think it was my first week at school. I went into the bathroom stall of my dorm, and there was like a flyer to come out to the club rugby practice. And I was like, that sounds really fun. I might as well give it a try. I mean, as I'm watching all the varsity programs walk by me, and I'm like, oh, I miss a team. So my first week at college, I went out to practice, and literally the first practice, I was like, oh, this is the sport I've been meant to play my entire life. I think it's unfortunate because in my area, there wasn't rugby really growing up. So I didn't even know what rugby was when I went to my first practice. I was like, you know what? Let's give this sport a try.
Carolyn and I played the same sports as you growing up, so love
Nice.
that. But I'm curious, based on those sports and you transitioning to rugby, like how did those sports translate over to rugby and how did they prepare you? I'm curious if there were any things that you're like, oh, I took this away from this sport.
For sure. I think it is almost like a culmination of all the things. From softball, it's like catching the ball, catching high balls, things like that. From soccer, it's the fitness and the constant playing for 90 minutes straight. I think with basketball, it's the like lateral movement and being able to move on defense. For me, I think I never really, like, I think I could have been really good at soccer, but I never really strived there because I am like a rule follower to a T. So in soccer, you can't touch people. You're not allowed to like, that's against the rules. So my dad would always be like, you got to be more aggressive. You got to be more aggressive. I'm like, no, that's against the rules. So then it's like the second I start playing rugby, I'm like, oh, I can tackle people? Like, perfect. That's great.
Yeah. Did you find that other teammates were also coming from other sports, or did some teammates, I guess it was a mix, but did a lot of teammates grow up playing rugby? What was that experience?
So I would say this is probably common with most rugby programs since a lot of them are club. Most people have never played before. So a lot of them come from soccer backgrounds or played different sports in high school. But I think there are like a handful of varsity programs, and those are usually recruited for in college. But the majority of people that are walking onto their club teams have never played the sport before.
That's really cool how everyone could just come together from other sports, and look at you now. Like, came a long way there.
Yeah, for sure. I think also it's growing as a sport. So I think there are more people who have played now in high school. But I mean, obviously, when I started, that was 10 plus years ago, and rugby isn't what it was then, what it is today, with Ilona Maher and the growth of the women's game all over the world. So
true.
The growth of the game is incredible, especially over the past couple of years. And so a lot of us are new to the sport, first time watching it or getting to see it. So can you talk specifically about your position, like what your position is and then what your role is on the field?
Sure. In rugby, there's the forwards and the backs. Forwards are the ones that are in the scrum. So like when you look at the field and there's a big group of people just all bumping into each other, those are the forwards. I'm with the backs, so I usually hang out on the edge. That's kind of where my position hangs out. Wings, I play wings, so it's either 11 or 14, and those numbers usually designate which side of the field you play on primarily. I usually play 14, which I hang out on the right side. And usually 14s are more power focused, where the 11 is more of a speed, but generally backs are fast and you have to cover a lot of meters in games. And my role is to play the last line of defense in the line. I'm on the edge. If the ball gets out wide, I'm covering that, making those tackles. If anything gets kicked, I'm retreating to catch those kicks and things like that.
So you talked about power and speed. Can you explain that a little bit more? The one side is running to tackle someone. Is that, and the other is, I don't know, explain it to me.
Sure. In rugby, everyone plays attack and defense. I would say 14 is just like, I don't know why it is the way it is, but typically your 11 is someone that can break the line and score a try from 100 meters out, where the 14 is more like on attack. You're going to power through the line, get meters, and then maybe we'll work back, try to get it back to the other side. And defensively, I think the 14 is usually more defensive focused because you're playing defense on them passing with their right hand, and typically people's right hand pass is better than their left hand pass.
Got it. And what attracted you to the more defensive end?
It's funny because when I played basketball, I'm only 5'3". In basketball, I was really good at defense, but wasn't really good at anything else in regards to the game. I think I've always been really good at lateral movement, really good at the contact piece of things. That's kind of how I ended up there. I actually started my career as a forward, and then once I got to a higher level, they moved me to a wing. So I've only been playing wing for 6 out of the 11 years that I have played rugby.
Something that we've learned in our research and just watching rugby is it is a very respectful sport, especially how you interact with other players and the referees, and just overall culture definitely puts a ton of emphasis from what we've seen on safety, especially in tackles. So it looks rough on the outside. Like people might be watching and being like, and I think it is rough. Like I've seen people bruised up after rugby games. So I'm not even saying it's not rough, but can you just talk about how people keep each other safe and how the rugby world goes about that to make sure the players are safe and being respectful, things like that?
There is a baseline of respect in that people aren't making dirty tackles. And if there are players like that on the field, usually they're getting called out, or people are like, hey, cut it out. That's not how we play this game. But in rugby, to your point, you get a yellow card any tackle that's above the sternum. So like it could also get escalated to a red. Anything that's like head-to-head contact, you could get a red card. In rugby, red cards, you're off for the rest of the game. After 20 minutes, you can sub someone else on to the field.
But you're playing down that time.
Yeah, for those 20 minutes, you'll play down a player. And then it used to be if you got a red card, you would play down a player the entire game, which is interesting because in the 2021 World Cup final, the English team got a red card in the first 2 minutes of the game and played down a man the entire game, which is insane because I can't fathom playing down a man for 80 minutes. But now they can put someone on after 20 minutes. And I think even in training, like when we're doing contact training, there's such an emphasis on getting low in our tackles. That is number one rule. And I also think in terms of safety, they have the HIA rules now. So like head injury assessment, a lot of teams now have mouth guards that will flash red if your head gets knocked. And then there's someone monitoring that. They'll take them off the field, do a head injury assessment for 10 minutes. And in that period, you can put someone else on the field. So really an emphasis on making sure our heads are safe because that's number one. And then also there's like the baseline of respect for each other, not wanting to cause injuries if we don't have to.
I think that's so important. And like Danielle was saying, you watch rugby and you're like, oh my gosh, but there are all these things happening behind the scenes. And it's interesting because in football, American football, everyone's wearing pads, right? So I do think you hit someone harder because you're like, this pad is here. But in rugby, you don't have pads. So you naturally have a little bit more body awareness of how you're interacting with someone else. It's cool to see. And from an outsider, I'm like, oh, it looks so rough. But I'm like, oh no, they actually all know what they're doing. And it's interesting to see people so aware of their body.
Yeah, and we talk about this a lot because in football, they can just run into each other. And that can be a tackle. In rugby, that's a penalty. If you run into someone and don't wrap them before making the tackle, or if you pick them up in the air and drop them down, that's a penalty. So there is a large emphasis on making tackles that are like wrap, safely bring them to ground, make sure that everyone is safe when we're doing things.
So for you, what is your favorite thing to do on the field when you're like, yes, I just freaking did that and I am awesome?
I would say my favorite thing is when you line someone up in a tackle and you hit them and it just feels so crisp and you put them back on their butt and you're like, wow, that was 10 out of 10. Good tackle technique. Yeah.
Love that. Okay. So the Women's Premier League was the highest level league in the US. Can you talk a little bit about the transition from Women's Premier League to Women's Elite Rugby? And then my second question is, Women's Elite Rugby is the highest level of professional that we have here in the US, but it's still considered semi-professional. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Women's Premier Rugby was originally semi-pro, but really we were operating as a club. We were just traveling across the country and doing that. And I think there were also like some higher standards that we were being held to in that league that other leagues weren't, in terms of reffing, in terms of athletic trainers and things like that. But yeah, we were certainly paying for all of our own travel, paying for all of our coaching staff and gear and things like that, which it was a limiting factor because you weren't getting the best rugby players, because some people would finish college and be like, I can't pay to travel to California. I can't pay to travel to Denver. And I can't even pay the dues that you're asking me to pay because it could be upwards of $300 for a season, which is not small. It is an amount of money that you're paying to be considered semi-professional. You're like, I'm paying to be considered semi-professional. But yeah, I think now Women's Elite Rugby, basically same structure. They used all the same teams that were in the Women's Premier League because there was already the infrastructure there. And they now just pay for all of our flights, pay for all of our travel, give us gear, pay for our coaching staff. So like when we were Women's Premier League, our dues were going towards fields, going towards coaching, going towards all the things, where now that's all covered. All we are worrying about is playing rugby. We're still semi-professional because we're not getting paid, but like we are getting a lot of benefits. So we can't survive off of this. Like everyone needs to have secondary jobs or first jobs. This is our secondary job. But I think this is a huge step forward for us in terms of, I mean, I've saved $5,000 a year just because I'm not paying for my own flights and my own gear and everything like that.
How do you balance it? Like, how are you balancing your full-time job on top of playing rugby, and you weren't getting paid and now at least your flights are covered, but it just overall seems like a lot. So just would love more insight into that.
We practice in the evenings because everyone has full-time jobs. So our practices usually are from 7:30 to 9:30. That's like kind of our window. We're practicing now Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and then we have some other sessions in between. The expectation is that players do all the gym stuff and all the extras on their own. So fit it in when you can. But I think for a lot of us, it is a lot. And I think you have to be really transparent with your workplace. Like, this is something that I'm pursuing. And I think a lot of us are lucky that our workplaces are like, that's great. And we're excited to support you. I know for myself, I have unlimited PTO. I have pretty flexible hours. So that helps me get to training and have the time to do the things that I want to do outside of work. But yeah, I have some teammates that are teachers, some teammates that are working in science and other things like that. So I think that's like why we are still practicing so late, because some people can't get out of work early, but we all make it work. And it's a grind for sure. When we're in season, you're going from point A to point B and bouncing around, and it takes a lot of capacity. But we all care so much about this sport that we make it work.
You are in the gym a ton from your Instagram. How do you know what to train? And how much time are you spending in the gym on top of your practices and your work and everything else?
The league actually provides us with programming. So even though we're not doing team lifts, we have an app that gives us lifts that we're supposed to be getting through. I am lucky enough that I go to a gym called Flight Performance and Fitness, and it's owned by two ex-rugby players, and I started going there when I was in college, actually. And so they do all my programming for me. It depends for me. In season, I will usually do 3 to 4 lifts a week, one of them being a primer for game day. And then an off season, I could be doing 5 lifts a week. But I really trust my trainers because I've worked with them for so long and they understand rugby and the needs of rugby. But it is also really positionally different. You go to other sports, it's like every person could be doing the same lift. For rugby, it's like people that are in the tight 5 in the scrum need more strength, need more neck strength, upper body strength, lower body strength, where for me as a wing, speed is more important. So like still need strength, but working on fast twitch, lateral movement, speed, things like that are more important, especially as we get into the season.
And do you like being in the gym?
Yeah, I mean, I love the gym. I think for me, mental health wise, I'm like, I need the gym, but I know that in season it becomes a grind. You're like, okay, I really don't want to go today, which I do think makes it more challenging when we're not doing team lifts, because you really have to hold yourself accountable for getting all those extras in on top of training. But I love the gym. So yeah.
You mentioned off-season briefly as it relates to lifting. What does off-season look like from a player perspective? Are you all still hanging out? Are you still doing group workouts? Just a little more about that.
Yeah, so I actually, this last offseason, I went and I played in Seattle because they play in a Canadian league. So I went and got some extra minutes. I know some of my teammates played in some of the club teams around here, but I think some people took the entire time off because that's what they needed. But I know if I'm in Boston, we'll play touch every Sunday. That's kind of our thing, is to have a touch point with each other, people that are still in the area. There are some people that when the season ends, go, because they're not from here, go home, go to other places. But anyone that's here, we try to play touch every Sunday for a couple hours just to get some skills in and also hang out.
So you have your first match today at the time of recording. By the time this episode comes out, you'll have a couple matches under your belt. Can you talk about specifically for the Boston Banshees, what are you hoping for the team, and then anything you're focusing on as an individual in this second year of women's elite rugby?
I think as a team, we just want to build. We have a great foundation from year one. I think we have the same head coach. We have a lot of the same players returning. So I think we want to build on what we had already built last year, which I think for us, we want to really be known for our defense. We really want to come out hot in the first 10 minutes of the game, because I think that was something that we struggled with last year. So something that we're taking in. And I also think we really want to be a team's team. We really want to be in this together and have a great atmosphere, because it's always easier to play a sport when you feel like you enjoy the people you're playing with. So I think that was big for us. For me personally, we have feedback calls before the season. And I think my goal for myself is to just do my job and do it really well. Now that the uncertainty of year one is over, it's like I feel more confident going into this season because I know what to expect and I know what it's going to look like generally. Obviously, some things will change, but yeah, just really owning my role on the team and trying to improve every day.
Rugby culture is really interesting to me. And Boston has this very, I'm going to call it strange mascot called Tiff. Can you talk about Tiff and what she is? And is she your official mascot?
Yeah. So we have a Instagram that's Tiff Rugby Banshees. I don't even know what it's really called, but yeah, often memes are posted on that account, which is silly. But Tiff came about because one of my teammates, we were just kind of like trying to figure out a way to Tiff essentially for our team is every week she gets given to someone who was working really hard at training, who was really like being recognized for all the effort that they were putting in. It's not necessarily someone that's in the 23 that's rostered on game day. It's someone that's showing up to practice every day, working really hard, even if they're not necessarily getting the minutes on the field. So we give Tiff every Thursday at the end of training, and then that person is responsible for bringing Tiff everywhere for the rest of the week. And she is creepy, that's for sure.
Can you describe her? Because I don't know if Danielle's seen her.
It's Chucky's bride from the movie Chucky. That's the doll. And our teammates now have given her a little pimped out outfit, basically. And so last year we had this doll and she broke. Her arm fell off, her head fell off. So we had to get Tiff 2.0 for year 2, but she has a nice little leather crop top and denim shorts now. But yeah, she has crazy eyebrows. She looks like a biker chick, has like bleach blonde hair, but yeah.
She sounds terrifying.
And in some of the memes online, she's like got a cigarette. It's so funny. I love it so much.
Yeah, we've really embraced she is like an alcoholic, cigarette smoker. Yeah.
On top of the funny culture of rugby, there's also a huge push, I feel like, in the entire rugby community where everyone's just aligned on inclusivity. And I've seen your social media posts. You are very active politically and always saying the right thing. So do you think rugby attracts players like that, or do you think it's a culture or a little bit of both?
I actually saw a post about this recently that I think because rugby has historically not been in the mainstream media, like a lot of female athletes found it as a place that they were welcome. Any type of female athlete, not what people stereotypically want from a female athlete. So I think it's a place that all body types, all types of people are welcome. And I think because of that, the LGBTQ community has really leaned into rugby because it is such a welcoming place and historically has been a place where any gender identity is welcome. Trans women have always been welcome in our community. So I think recently has been obviously really challenging because of everything that's coming out with the IOC. And unfortunately, USA Rugby did follow suit with the IOC, which has caused a lot of backlash from the community because people are unhappy. This isn't what the community wants. And so I think it feels like it's being pushed down our throats when this isn't what anyone really wants.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot on the podcast, but so often if you actually talk to the people playing the sport, they would tell you, we play with trans people, we play with non-binary people. It's never been an issue. So for you to think that you're protecting us, it's not really protecting anyone. It's just hurting everyone who plays the sport. But I think everyone's in a very tricky position where there are these top-down things and organizations are being forced to accept them. I don't know where we go from here, but I do have to commend rugby that culture just is like, that is not how we play. That is not how we've ever done things.
Yeah. And so when USA Rugby posted their new policies, so many clubs, like women's rugby clubs, were posting like, trans people are welcome here, no questions asked. And I think it becomes tricky now with competitions because of the way USA Rugby has structured moving forward. So I think clubs are now trying to find a way to get around the policies that have been put into place. But I think the community as a whole, as like teams and individuals, want to support our trans teammates and things like that. And it's just now trying to figure out the best way to move forward and work with what we're given in terms of policy.
I'm sorry that that's happening. We talk about it on the podcast. We could imagine it, but to actually having it in your sport when it could affect your teammates and the people you play with, it must be difficult.
Yeah, and it has had an impact on our trans players. And I think generally the players in the league are trying to find ways to speak out and speak our truth about how we feel about it without, it's complicated.
Yeah, and it is, and you're a new league. There's many, many layers. So you are part of the player committee, and part of your role in that player committee is to meet with league leadership at women's league rugby within the league. So can you tell me some things that the committee is exploring to enhance the league? What is your role on the player committee, and what are you all looking to do?
I've been with the player committee since WPL. So that transition period, I started when I was on Beantown, and then I've been in this role since. But our goal is to have players have a voice. And so I think it's easy in a new league for the league just to make decisions, but that's not necessarily what the players want. So I think there's been a lot of that of like, okay, we have X amount of funds. What is most important to players? What are the things that players would like to see most in terms of satisfaction with the league? And I think from year 1 to year 2, they really listened to our feedback and they've improved certain things that players were like, this was a pain point last year and we would really love to see some of that fixed. So for example, one issue that we had was when we were traveling, we didn't have athletic trainers traveling with us, which was really hard because especially in rugby, people get injured all the time and you need taping for your injuries, and to have the same person taping it every time is really helpful. And so that was like a big push we had, was to have our athletic trainers that we work with every day to come and travel with us. So I think, yes, there's definitely hiccups every week, every day with the league, just still in such infancy, trying to sort out some of these bumps in the road. But I think it's a place for us as players to give feedback of what we're seeing day in and day out. And I think it's also a place for the league to bounce ideas off of us and to get our feedback in terms of what they want to do.
And what's your process for speaking with players in the league to figure out what's most important?
So historically, we've used Google Forms. So there's a player rep from every team that's on the committee. So we work pretty closely and we'll create a form and then we'll send it out to all of our teams to get a general consensus of all the players and have them give feedback in terms of certain issues. I think in the off season, there was a question of what is most important to you that you'd like to see next year if we can only have 2 of these things be resolved. And so we did a rank of what people would want to see. And then we took that and gave that information to the league.
Looking forward, and when you think about like year 2 to year 3 or even year 2 to year 5, what are some additional enhancements that might be a focus?
Obviously, eventually we would love to get paid. That's kind of, I think, top of everyone's mind. But I think as of right now, we'll see. I think in terms of how this year goes, what we would like to see improved upon, because I think some of the other things that now we're traveling, we'll be staying over 2 nights on game day, where before it was kind of like we would travel in the night before, but we would leave right after the game, which was leading to like some red eyes and things like that, which just like isn't really sustainable for people. Traveling for 2 nights is also hard because some people with work, you have to get back for work, or you can't leave early on a Friday because you have a job that doesn't have that flexibility. Until we're getting paid a salary that is sustainable, it's hard to balance all of the things.
That's really interesting because you have players with their own responsibilities and you're also wanting to improve the league and make sure that people stay safe. You have to find this middle balance somewhere and strike it. And that's really difficult to do. And so much of it was like, well, if there's a salary, a lot of these problems go away, but that also takes time.
For sure. And I think it's hard for rugby players because I think we see the WNBA, we see the NWSL and how successful they are and where they're at. And we're like, well, why aren't we there yet? But they went through so many iterations of their leagues to get to where they are now. And they've been in existence for so long, and they're just now reaping the benefits of those things. So I think in this day and age, it's really hard for us to be like, oh, but like, that's what we want. But it's just, that's not possible at this point in time.
And I think it'll be faster, right? With the momentum that women's sports has had in the past 5 years, there should be an acceleration for rugby because people are watching, people are interested. You're pros and you should be getting paid, right? So hopefully that that happens faster than the NWSL and the WNBA.
For sure. And I think it's also interesting just from a rugby perspective because there's a men's professional rugby league and it has been a little slow growing and it isn't quite what other men's sports leagues are. But I think that is almost a direct reflection of how many men's sports leagues there are. And rugby is almost directly competing with the NFL, which is like, that's a huge beast to be competing with.
The largest.
Yes. So I think women's rugby is its own niche in that there's so few full contact women's sports that there's a spot for us. Obviously, there's also professional women's football, but I think they're in the same place as us of still getting off the ground. Yeah, so I think that's why men's rugby has really struggled in this country because it's a lot to learn and people don't want to invest the time to learn the sport.
When they can just turn on the NFL on Sunday. But I agree. I don't think women's rugby is competing with men's rugby. I think women's rugby is trying to take up the space that is there in the women's space.
Yeah, for sure. I think more full contact women's sports is great.
So the Banshee season is in full force as this episode releases. Where can people follow and support you and the Banshees?
We now have several accounts for the Banshees. Obviously, Tiff's account that we already talked about, but the main Banshees account is at WER_Banshees. And then we have another supporters group. It's called the Whaling Club or something like that. But yeah, so those are the main accounts for our team.
And then where can people follow you?
My account is at @Santaswasso.
We'll link to everything in our show notes. And then how can people watch the Boston Banshees if they are in Boston and if they're not?
So we'll be playing mostly Saturdays at home, and our field is at Veterans Memorial Stadium in Quincy. A lot of night games because summer in Boston is hot. So we are going to be playing at night. And then for away games, all of our games are going to be streamed on the Women's Sports Network, which you can get on most TVs. You can download an app for it. But all of that information is on our Instagram pages.
That's awesome.
And something we like to ask all of the people we interview, who's your favorite athlete in women's sports and why?
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions. Well, first of all, I am obsessed with Billie Jean King. That's something that is a known fact about me, but I've been begging her basically to come out to a game because I read her autobiography and it changed my life in terms of understanding women's sports and where it's come from and just like how much she did for women's sports in general. But I would say in terms of current athletes that are actively playing their sport, I love A'ja Wilson. She's just doing so much for the WNBA and is such an amazing player. It's fun to watch. So
did I see you dress up as Billie Jean King somewhere on your Instagram? Is that right?
Yes, that was my Halloween costume this year. And she actually commented on my post. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I am like, one of these days, I'm going to get through to her and get her to come to one of our games. But
Billie Jean King, you need to go to Boston. You need to go to a Boston Banshees game. You need to meet Tiff.
Yeah, no. Every time I see her at one of the PWHL games, I'm like, I know you invest in that league, but you could just come by and check it out.
That would be a great investment as well.
Yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up today, is there anything else that we should cover or highlight?
One thing for rugby, women's rugby right now, the Women's Six Nations is happening, which is the European teams. So England, Ireland, Italy, Wales, Scotland are all playing each other. That was France is the other one. Are all playing each other for the next couple weeks. It's exciting to watch. It's all on Peacock too. So easy access.
Love that. Love to spread the word. Thank you, Emma, for joining us. That wraps up our interview for today. Be sure to follow Emma on Instagram along with the Boston Banshees. The Banshees take on the Denver Onyx on Saturday, May 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So check it out. That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, and share the podcast with your friends. Thanks for joining us.